Feel like I'm now going to be recording that with a video, which is annoying. But
I mean, that's how the quiz was done.
I know, but I'm not releasing this as a video, am I?
Turned out to be useful when all of the text-based innuendo was happening.
It's recording with a video insofar as there is technically a video stream being written to disk, but it's just black because I haven't done any screen capture.
That just sounds hilariously space inefficient.
Well, this is why I don't like recording with OBS.
Genuine question. Would video of a blank screen, say it's a 1 hour video of a blank screen, would that take up more space? Would that file be larger than a 1 hour video of actual stuff that moves and does things?
Depends how it's compressed, but in most cases, no, it would be significantly smaller.
Nice.
When you're encoding video, you've got a choice between constant bitrate, average bitrate, and like some ways of doing variable bitrate. In most commonly, you do like H.264 format video, and most encoders for that format, like the X264 encoder, also have a mode called CRF, constant rate factor, and that tries to do a target quality, and it uses some kind of measure to measure the quality of the output and tries to keep that number constant. And so it will vary the bitrate massively throughout the file to try and maintain that quality. It introduces artifacts of its own when you do that. There's lots of trade-offs with these things. But if you were doing CRF encoding, a static image should take up a lot less space because it will basically encode like a P frame every now, I think it's a P frame. Yeah, P frame every now and then, which is the full image data. And then it will start using, I think they're B frames next, which are like difference frames. No, what is it? It's IP and B. I-frames are the full ones. I doesn't matter. Anyway, every now and then it will basically encode the full frame in one go. And then after that, it will do a series of difference frames. And it will basically encode the changes from the frame before that. And it will stack a bunch of those up. And then depending on the GOP length for the video, it will start putting in more sort of full frames. And so if the image isn't changing very much, it can do much longer GOP. And also the difference frames are much, much smaller. And so it takes up a lot less space. But if you did like CBR or ABR, then it would just use a constant bitrate, or for CBR, a constant bitrate. For ABR, it would average out the bitrate, but it would end up being, for example, 6,000 kilobits per second, in which case it doesn't matter what the content is, the file would be about the same size for a given length.
So that's a lossy form of compression.
Yes, it is.
Are there lossless formats that people use, or are they just unreasonably large?
That people use, I think the answer is probably no. You can do lossless video. It is massive because you are encode for every pixel. You've got to encode all the color channels, and you might even start including things like an alpha channel as well, which gets a bit insane. But yeah, so you end up coding at least 3 bits per pixel. And then once you're, well, not 3 bits per pixel, you'll do whatever your color depth is per pixel. So if you had like 8-bit video, you're doing 8 bits per color channel per pixel, which is 24 bits per pixel. And then you're multiplying that by the number of pixels in a frame. And for 1080p, that's like, 1,920 times 1,080 pixels. And so you end up having these massive sort of like things of data per frame, and then because it's lossless you can't do the difference kind of stuff, so you end up encoding, well, you probably could do like lossless compression on that afterwards for do different stuff, but yeah, you end up with an enormous stuff. And I think once you start getting into the world of like 4K or 8K, it's truly astronomical how much bandwidth you need to sort of deal with that.
See, I was assuming that like the slow-mo guys, they often talk about the amount of data that they produce. I wasn't sure if that was just because of the amount of frames, or if that was more to do with them also using some crazy lossless or very low loss compression method, or just no compression.
It's a combination of the two. So nothing. I don't think anything really like shoots genuinely uncompressed stuff and then saves it. I think that would be insane and unnecessary. But big production cameras like that are very low compression in what's on there. They retain a lot more information for what's going on. And the slow-mo guys as well, they have extra frames and stuff. And I think in one of their behind-the-scenes videos, Gavin's sort of showing an upgrade to the computer, and he's got this like very high frame rate 4K video that he can't play from certain discs. He has to make sure that the file is coming from the NVMe drive, because otherwise you just can't play it back because it's too much data to be read off of over like a SATA interface in a computer and stuff. So yeah, video can use a ridiculous amount of data.
Nice. I've learned something, and I've sort of used up your quota of geeking out for the episode.
Oh dear.
Got to get these things done early, you know?
Discovered what a ridiculous amount I know about video encoding.
I mean, I did ask, remembering that you'd spent a lot of time doing stuff with video encoding.
Oh, it's endlessly fascinating. Endlessly fascinating.
I believe you. Do you want to roll straight into some follow-up?
We should do some follow-up, yeah?
We actually have proper follow-up, the kind of follow-up that comes from other human beings responding to the thing we did before.
Not possible.
It is still technically a Ryan is corrected segment, but it's not a Ryan corrects himself segment, and it feels good to make that change. And I've just realised we've reached the point where I've got to awkwardly introduce and read a comment, which I have always found incredibly challenging, let's say. Because I hear myself doing it and just instinctively hate myself.
Go for it. I believe in you.
Maybe I should go in the style of our intros to fights last time and just intentionally ham it up to the point where it's just funny to me.
I would enjoy
Go
that.
full local radio DJ here.
I would enjoy that.
So we got a comment here from the True Correct guy on Reddit, and he says, or she says, we don't know. Actually, no, it's kind of implied by the use. This has already gone.
Didn't even get past the name before that went off the rails.
Sometimes you just get in your own head, you know, and there's no coming back from that.
I mean, statistically, I feel like he is probably fine, but maybe go with they.
It.
Brutal.
No. All my difficulties with naming aside, it's an excellent comment that raises 2 points that I'm not going to particularly argue with. So first of all, on the subject of Witch Doctor...
Whoa. I refuse to believe that you are not going to argue with something.
I'm going to debate it, but in the context of agreeing.
Okay.
If that makes sense, which it probably doesn't. So, part 1 says, I think you guys are underestimating 2018 Witch Doctor's capabilities. Its only real issue with reliability was the wheel falling off disease, and especially given how well it did against Blacksmith, one of the most durable bots in the 2018 season, I don't think it's fair to say it will deal one big hit and then burn out. And yet, I think we completely, due to my mistake making in the note making in particular, I think we really did conflate the 2018 Witch Doctor with the 2019 Witch Doctor. 2018 had the wheel falling off problem, which was a big issue. I don't think you should be having, you know, unmotivated wheel losses like they had against Yeti, Blacksmith. The first wheel loss against Minotaur didn't really seem to be the result of a hit, but it was 2019 that was the year of the smoke. You know, the weapon went out halfway through the Shatter fight, it went out halfway through the Whiplash fight. The only electrical issues they had in 2018 were the Yeti fight, and they changed everything after that and seemed to be fine. So yeah, completely fair. I think that was mostly just because we were struggling to readapt, shall we say, from my error.
I feel like it was me primarily saying that Witch Doctor was going to burn out, but rather than take the blame, I'm going to blame Ryan and his shoddy note-taking.
In general, this is a mistake that we're going to make again.
Yeah.
When we were last doing Retuncti, my mission was to make sure I'd watched every single fight that every robot had before recording, and that was not sustainable, and I'm not doing that anymore. And we're working on memory. We are occasionally going to pick things up from 2019. That's our fault for letting Retuncti start or continue now, rather than getting it all done before that season started.
Or just dropping the whole thing altogether.
Not an option. Never an option. We could still say that from next round we're going to include 2019 performances. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not.
No, we must be consistent.
I feel like between rounds is a place where it's okay to change things. You know, they accept that in all sports.
We must be consistent.
I'm with you for now, but if this continues to be a problem, we might need to, you know, pivot.
Okay.
I can't blame 2019 for the next pit, though. So, also, I can't think of a fight that Basilisk has been able to drive straight in. It was completely absent from the axe backwards / deviled egg rumble just because it couldn't drive well enough to get into the action. It couldn't free a motionless chomp that was stuck in the kill saws, and I'm pretty sure it barely played a part in the tag team. I personally would have given the edge to Vanquish because it's proven it can drive pretty solidly, which would make it tough for Basilisk to get in position for a flip. Again, having gone back today and watched most of Basilisk's fights, completely fair. That thing, the drive flakes out all the time. I had in my head the couple of flips that it managed in that tag team, which were fine, but also against essentially motionless robots. So having watched those back properly, I agree, Vanquish, while one flip would end the fight, I think Vanquish definitely has the ability to go the 3 minutes without giving that opportunity.
If only we knew that before we started recording last time.
I'm actually going to check if we know. I'm not saying we'll do a do-over. I think do-overs are almost out of the question. But I am going to quickly check the next round to see if we know who Basilisk will have yet, which first involves remembering where I saved it, which is apparently harder than I thought. Oh no, it's fallen off of my recent documents. That makes it essentially unreachable.
Oh dear.
We'll leave it for now. Between episodes, I will check. If it looks like that fight, the winner of that fight is going into something that might be close, then maybe we'll look at that again. I don't know. You might have strong opinions on do-overs.
I don't think we've done do-overs yet. I recall having had a conversation about it at some point, whether or not we would do it.
That was in regards to Photon Storm, where I basically made up a championship that they'd won.
Ah.
Because there's still no good information on historic live scene performance of robots in the UK.
Someone needs to get on that.
Come on, the wiki.
Come on, wiki editors. Stuck inside now. What else have you got to do?
I mean, I feel like most of the robot combat community don't really leave their houses anyway, so if I'm anything to go by, I consider myself the representative of this community.
That paints a sorry picture for the community as a whole. No laughter. I've offended Ryan. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. I've just actually managed to get the document open and I'm checking now instead. And I decided that was more important than you.
That's probably fair.
Okay, so in the next round, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Basilisk is going to be facing Whiplash.
Okay.
I feel like that's going in the same direction either way.
Oh, I look forward to the upset.
Oh, God. If it squirms its way through from here.
Upset of the century.
The way I've chosen to deal with this is definitely not the correct way, but it's also the way I think we're going to go.
What's that?
As in, deciding the decision doesn't matter because it's not going to affect the outcome next time, probably. That's typically not how decisions are made in sport, I believe.
Yeah, there should be, some rules to follow here.
But no, we're fortunate we're in a position that we're going through this so slowly, we won't actually have to make this decision for about 5 or 6 episodes, probably.
Yeah, what does that equate to? Maybe 2 years?
I mean, will we even still be around to make this decision? That's the real question.
It's we don't know. We don't know. Certainly a possibility.
Apocalypse jokes, always funny from the inside.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to either of those critiques, shall we call them?
No, I think that's fair. Shouldn't be surprising to anyone that I make mistakes. Or, well, I say make mistakes / don't have any idea what the performance of robots is. So, I feel fine about what happened.
It is always really interesting to me that, and this is something that I was especially thinking going into the Big Bot quiz, which, spoiler alert, went pretty well. It's like, we are not even close to the most knowledgeable people about the sort of history and trivia of robot combat.
I know. Well, I know that I'm not. I'm surprised that you would say that you're not close.
My knowledge of the old series isn't that good. And I was lucky that I was teamed up with someone who had very good knowledge of that. And our strengths and weaknesses overlapped. So I was pretty good on reboots, international competition. Well, I say international competition, King of Bots. But very weak on the old series, and for Ben it was the opposite, so that worked really well, and that made us do well. But I'm always stunned by the things that other people can retain. The specificity of information that people have in their head is mind-blowing. So we either need to get to that level, or accept that we're going to make mistakes, and I know which one's easier.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm never going to get to that level.
Me either, even with the obsessive note-making.
Well, mistakes abound then.
We will do our best, and we'll have fun doing it. And our first fixture is definitely one where you're not even going to remember one of the robots.
I'm not even going to remember 2 of the robots.
Would you like to introduce it, or shall I?
Shall I give it a go?
Remember, increasing enthusiasm.
Oh no, let me...
Set the bar low to start.
Oh, so it doesn't have to be the bar that we'll set at the end of last episode.
Oh, actually, maybe it should be. Maybe it should be increasing through the whole series.
I'm not sure we can do that.
I know we can't, and that's why I love it.
Like a game of bogeys where we've started too loud. What's up? It's your boy Sam, and today we're going to be talking about Big Nipper, Parallax, and Crazy Coupe 88.
Absolutely nailed it.
Oh, man.
And that's now going to be on the internet forever.
People maintain that throughout like an entire thing that they do.
That's what happens when you have no shame.
How can you how can you even physically maintain that level of energy?
Youth.
Yeah.
Right, let's get on with this before we start turning into old men.
In my day.
We have Big Nipper first, and I don't know if there's a versioning debate to be had here or not. Because they went into Series 8 and 10 with roughly the same setups, the same potential setups, but it seemed like the Series 10, especially with the Vert, was such an upgrade in terms of power that maybe it should be classed as its own thing. I'm not sure. Or maybe we just didn't see the potential of it the first time. All I know is there was a lot of talk coming into Series 10 about that weapon being so much stronger. Or maybe we all just forgot it existed the first time round.
My recollection, which I'm going to say this now, is almost certainly wrong, but my recollection is that they didn't use the Vert very much in Series 8.
Yeah, in Series 8, they used it once and the Grabber 3 times, and that was kind of reversed for Series 10, where they used the Vert 4 times and the Grabber once.
So when we sort of say that the weapon was being massively upgraded, is it that they made massive upgrades to the Vert and then used it a lot more?
Or just used it more and we didn't realise how good it was in the first place. We can cop out and say that because it was the same potential setups each time, we just consider them combined. And then maybe when we decide on what weapon they're going to use for a fight, we can look at the record of that weapon.
Wait, we have precedents for this. Like, if it's like not clear which of them is like notably better or worse if it's changed, we just assume it's the most modern version, right?
Yeah, but the issue here is whether it's changed at all or they should be considered combined.
Oh, what, in terms of the record? Do you want to decide whether or not we can discount some set of the record?
So basically, do we just look at it as a Series 10 machine, or do we look at its combined reboot record?
Oh, man, I don't know.
To be fair, the numbers are basically the same either way. It's either 2 and 3 or 4 and 5.
Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all basically the same number.
That is how maths works. Combining them is the easier approach. So maybe we should just do that.
Let's just do that. Let's not get too caught up in this nonsense here.
So, Big Nipper, eh? That's a robot that's done some stuff.
Yeah. Nipped some things.
It's a really hard record to look at and make sort of value judgments on the robot. It's kind of in that Witch Doctor space of, it's got some underwhelming wins and some understandable losses.
In the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure I rate Big Nipper particularly highly. But then looking at the other 2 robots in this round, I'd say it's pretty good.
In which case, should we look at them first and then potentially loop back around?
Oh, stop saying loop back around.
Do I say that a lot?
Yes. It might also just be because it's one of the cold opens that I listen to a lot and it just stands out to me whenever you say it.
I mean, I do have lots of weird phrases. I've also started using your phrases quite a lot, which is probably even worse.
Excellent.
I'm just diluting your identity.
That's fine. I can cope with that.
Let's take a look at Parallax and Crazy Coupe 88, and then we can return to where we started.
Okay.
Parallax is a nice, easy one to talk about. It never really seemed to work that much, but it always has being a wedge going for it, which in some cases in Retunti can be enough.
Lost against Ultimo Destructo, though.
That is a fact. It also lost against Basilisk, which, as we've now determined, doesn't really drive. So it's worth noting that Parallax is actually from the same team that then brought P1 in 2019.
Yeah. They improved their game a bit then.
I mean, P1 wasn't particularly successful, but it was damn cool. Although Parallax, visually, really nice looking robot. And when you looked at it, especially sort of before the season started, it's a robot that seems to have a lot going for it. It's got some good wedginess to it. The drive, as soon as you see a chunky four-wheel drive, you assume it's going to be quite solid until proven otherwise. It's avert, so immediately probably in the top half of robots. That's how that works.
Specifically, what kind of vert, though?
Chunky Drisk.
A chunky Drisk.
Although I don't actually see where... This doesn't affect it being a Drisk or not, but I've just realised that I don't quite understand how that weapon is driven. I don't know if there's a chain on one side, but normally with the Drisk you expect that centre section to be the pulley, and they don't appear to have done that. Could have been hub motor as well.
I presume there's something on one side of the drum.
There's something on both sides. Bearings, mostly.
I presume there's a belt on the near side in that picture. That's what it looks like to me.
I mean, that's not very helpful for people who won't get to see our picture, and also that picture is flipped. Although that would still be the near side.
It's the near side of the picture, as I'm looking at it, is the side where I think there's a belt. It doesn't matter how it's driven anyway. I would call it a drum.
And you would be wrong.
It's clearly a drum with two big teeth on it.
It is clearly a central shaft with two discs of a greater radius than the shaft itself, which then also have teeth.
That's got to be like such a minuscule difference in the diameter there, though.
I mean, it's visible from a distance. It isn't the kind of thing where you'd need to run your finger along it to feel it.
If I took a drum, or if I took a solid cylinder of a material, and then machined just the centre bit down 1 millimetre, is that no longer a drum?
I think some of it also comes down to construction method. This looks like it's different materials as well. And I assume there is some kind of interface between those materials rather than it being a solid piece. I do think there would be a crossover point of doing what you're saying, where I would be reluctant to call it a drum anymore, but I couldn't say where that crossover point is. That's where my need to sort of classify things comes up against the messiness of reality.
No, I want a hard line, 2 millimetres. Is that enough for it to no longer be a drum?
I mean, that would also depend on whether it was like a beetle weight scale weapon, a heavyweight scale weapon, because 1 or 2 mil on a beetle weight scale weapon is huge compared to on a heavyweight scale weapon.
So it's not, so we need some kind of...
It's a percentage, let's be honest.
A percentage difference, yeah.
You start manufacturing drums and I'll tell you when you've gone too far. If it's all from one piece, I think that puts it more in drum territory. Once you start connecting things together, you're more likely to be in the world of Drisks. But then if you look at something like Bucktooth Burl's style of drum, or I suppose sort of X301's style of drum, which is a load of discs put together because that's an easier way of manufacturing it, the overall profile of that still comes out drum-like. It's also important, with this being more Drisk than drum, that there is a fairly significant amount of the weapon that doesn't have any tooth. Whereas on a drum, we usually see that there is some tooth across pretty much the whole width. That might be the kind of saber-tooth style, where it's half on one side, half on the other, but if you think of it sort of rotationally, every part of it is toothed. And I'll allow a small cutout for a belt in that case.
It's very generous of you.
Because it's still, the vast majority of it has tooth surface.
Interesting.
And I fully expect all builders to adhere from that from here on in.
Perfect. I shall continue to call it a drum.
I'll email Battlebots and get them to sort of go through and revise any robot descriptions from the past that might have called something that doesn't class as a drum.
Excellent.
I'll also get Jonathan Pearson to do some ADR for old episodes of Robot Wars.
Yeah. We all know your success record with emailing Battlebots about these things as well.
I mean, it's currently 100%, so yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe in you. You can do it. Change the world.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Meh.
So moving on from Parallax, I suppose, because we've totally been talking about them for ages. We have the majesty of Crazy Coupe 88. And there's just so much to see here.
Majesty? Is that really how you want to describe this?
2 weapons, a random caster, and wheelbarrow wheels. That is majestic.
Does that caster do anything?
I mean, when they're inverted, it looks like it might touch the ground.
I mean, it looks like it's lower than the bottom of or the top of the robot.
My guess is that when they were inverted, they were having issues with it trying to kind of fall onto its nose. And that caster must be just enough to either stop that from happening or keep it in a position where it'll sort of eventually fall back. Oh, it's also checker plate, which makes it an immediately brilliant robot. This is the modern Hypnodisc. That's what this is.
You know, when you were sort of young, growing up, and someone, people, your elders would say to you, if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything.
Is that your approach to this robot?
I have nothing to say about this robot.
It's very Series 8, isn't it? Series 8 was a time where there were a lot of robots around and working, but very few of them were spinners. So a lot of the spinners that we saw in Series 8 were a little bit, improvised, shall we say. And this is one of them. It's kind of like a hunchback tombstone that then also had a weapon thrown on the back just because.
What does the weapon on the back do? What is it?
It's a vertical spinner.
Of course it is. As if there wasn't enough gyroscopic effects from the not level horizontal spinner on the front of it. Is that even the front? Maybe the vertical spinner's the front.
We have no way of knowing. Maybe the wheels are the front.
Maybe they're cunningly disguised omni wheels. Somewhere
in the sort of back gardens of whatever part of the UK this came from, there's a random wheelbarrow that's just got mechanisms on it. There's been a horrible mix-up. I think we all know that despite Parallax's record, Crazy Cooper 88 is probably the one we're discounting here, isn't it?
I think so.
Although I suppose, should we work out what setup Big Nipper has before we make that call?
I think they'd go in with the vertical spinner.
I agree. So we're discounting Crazy Cooper 88.
Yeah. Sorry, Crazy Coop A88.
I kind of feel bad that we've discounted it that quickly, but I also know it's completely correct.
Look, it's not going to do well. It's not going to do well. It's got exposed wheels, and that is enough to immediately discount any robot from any fight.
Don't take wheels into the arena. But yeah, any Series 8 machine is already on the back foot here.
Yeah.
And one that had one fight and then went home, especially on the back foot. So the question is there any way for us to give Parallax a prayer here?
No. Its record is a compelling argument for this being a 6-1.
Yeah, and the finer details of the fights as well. I haven't rewatched the Ultimo Destructo one, but you lost to Ultimo Destructo's flipper. So I assume you did not work very well.
And while Big Nipper maybe doesn't have the world's greatest record, as far as I can recall, it's also never just randomly broken. It might have got beached at some point, maybe, did it?
So in the fight against Carbide and Gabriel that everyone forgets it was immobilised because one of Gabriel's entanglement devices got stuck in its drive. So it did appear to kind of just crap out in that fight, but there was a real and very unexpected reason that happened. Overall, it's an incredibly well-made machine. So yeah, 6-1.
6-1.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Big Nipper, 7 for Parallax.
It's 2.
So that's a kind of crackers and smash level KO, possibly into the lights.
Sure.
Right, it's my turn. Listen up, pimps. We've got a big one coming in for you here. It's Overhaul. It's Megatento. It's Bucktooth Burl. It's a fight to the death, and you, my friends, are going to love it.
Not sure if I can use that without editing it.
My idea of increasing enthusiasm is just going to be increasing profanity, I think, and adult references, adult themes.
Oh, don't do that.
What would you have to edit out of that?
I don't know.
Pimping is a perfectly legitimate business.
I mean, I'm going to continue my campaign for not censoring any of it, but...
We've got to maintain that clean rating.
But yeah, I know you're a fan of the fact that we're currently marked not explicit on iTunes.
We don't want to go down the ESC route and accidentally get banned from multiple platforms for that.
What did they do to get banned?
So they use a podcasting service, I can't remember which, where they have to manually set whether they are explicit or not. And I think on a couple of episodes they forgot to do that and then got dinged for being explicit without declaring it. and got removed from places like Spotify, where frankly a podcast should not be, let's be honest.
Host your own stuff, people.
Yeah, develop all of the necessary skills to host your own podcast before starting one. We need more barriers to entry.
Yeah, we do. Keep all the riffraff out.
Yes, especially that ESC lot. God.
Yeah, don't want them on there doing podcasts. God.
Never endorse it. Let alone a peer on it. God. Keep them away.
Oh, dear.
Once again, we start with a need to version, or a need to potentially not version.
You're going to claim that these are all the same robot?
See, I feel like the 2015 version, maybe we discount, because that's only on the basis that it was quite visually different. It was shinier. But then you also know that Charles is the kind of guy who is making huge internal upgrades every time. So once again, you don't want to offend him by claiming it is the same robot, but it's still trying to achieve the same thing the same way with the same body shape and the same look.
I thought we sort of concluded that it was distinct visual changes that we had to consider for this kind of stuff, like a different weapon type or something.
I don't remember what we agreed, but that sounds reasonable and sounds like the kind of thing I would have believed.
Oh, let's just consider the entire record, because I can't be bothered to get into the details of the year-to-year upgrades of the same robot every time we talk about this.
I mean, I think it's better for Overhaul that we include 2015 because it does include 50% of its wins.
Yeah, we'll throw Overhaul a bone here and just consider the entire record.
I really want Overhaul to be good and successful.
Yeah, I want it to be.
It once again feels like taking a control bot to Battlebots is a charitable donation to whatever company, whatever network is airing the show. And I massively appreciate every team that does that, because it does give us that much needed variety. The team have done pretty much everything they can with Overhaul to try and give it a chance. They've got a lot of different sort of front end options that they've developed over time. They experimented with kind of ablative armour on the sides for facing verts in the Witch Doctor fight, and I think the Warhawk fight as well. And none of these things have proven particularly effective in terms of winning matches, but they have gone out and put on fights quite reliably. Maybe I should upgrade that to very reliably. Maybe I'll regret that. Who knows?
Someone's going to write a very long comment explaining all the times they've been very unreliable.
And I look forward to it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Overhaul. I look at it and I want it to do well, but it doesn't excite me as a robot, you know?
Is it because it looks like it should be a crusher and isn't? Is that what you don't like here?
I mean, that's probably a part of it, is that it's not a crusher. I don't know.
It certainly felt weird not having it for 2019, because it would have been one of the couple of ever-presents otherwise.
Yeah.
But then, being persistent doesn't necessarily make you worthy.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a bad robot by any stretch. It's just a very middle-of-the-pack robot for me.
Middle of the pack is a weird thing to define because its record is heavily negative. 2 wins, 8 losses. But I guess there are a lot of robots, especially... Let's step away from Ratunkti here and just think about our general roboting philosophy. Fight Night has meant that there are a lot of robots that have come in, had a few fights and still not won. So in the context of them kind of piling up, I suppose it does become more middle of the pack.
Yeah, maybe middle of the pack is not quite the right way of phrasing it, but it's certainly it's a staple of the show that it's in. You know, you sort of, like you said, it's a shame when it's not there. You expect it to be there, even if it's not got the world's greatest record.
What would be the kind of Robot Wars equivalent of Overhaul in terms of that feel of, you know it's there, but it's not necessarily one of the ones you would name immediately?
I was going to say something like Diotoir, but yeah, you might name that one immediately. I'm not sure.
I suppose Diotoir's not the worst comparison. I was going to say that Diotoir was kind of there almost as a joke, but I think that's flying in the face of my philosophy on what makes a joke robot. Because Diotoir was a competent robot that just wasn't trying too hard to be competitive and be meta, and had a theme and a personality that came with it. But I suppose that does kind of put it in the Overhaul camp. Yeah, maybe I'm more okay with that comparison than I thought I was.
There you go. It's the Diotoir of Battlebots.
So let's move on to the red one with black spots then. Megatento is a robot that I swear was there for way more than one season and 3 fights.
It had a short but very bright life, you know.
Bright might be a little generous. It was a memorable life because it was involved in some controversy.
What was that?
I actually don't remember what specific fights it was, but it was in Battlebots in a time where the judging was increasingly contentious. And I seem to recall there being some controversy around decisions it was involved with.
I shall take your word for it.
What it does have going for it is that it was involved in a hit that seems to be replayed more than most, with Yeti coming in and completely demolishing the wheels, which is a lovely hit.
Yeah.
You know, this is more Overhaul than perhaps I realised. Now we've sort of had the conversation about Overhaul, I'm finding myself wanting to say kind of similar things.
Yeah, like it's a very memorable robot. It stands out, you know, and I think for me as well, like I think this is in the season of Battlebots that I first saw and really stood out to me as a very unique robot in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's like visually quite unique, but also the way that its weapon works and just the idea of having a robot that just consumes and blankets its opponent it's interesting. I'd like to see maybe more teams try something like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that'd be boring if you start hiding the action. Not sure. That is sort of the big flaw here, isn't it, in terms of entertainment, because it's got a little spinner inside it, doesn't it? But you can't see it.
And what they did for one of their fights, and I think this was in response to the judging thing, was they put the weapon on the rear sticking out so that it was visible when they were doing damage.
Yeah, make sure they get in those points.
It was interesting hearing you sort of analyse it there, because for me it's quite a different set of things. So first of all, it's from an established builder who is happily choosing to go against the meta. So that's one of the kind of Overhaul links. And then I suppose it's more of a Diotoir link, really, in terms of it being a robot with a very specific history to it. So it's based off of what I think was a middleweight in the original run of Battlebots, which also featured in one of the international episodes of Robot Wars. And that episode kind of built it up as being this really well-known, well-loved and respected dominant robot from America, which, when I actually looked into it a couple of years ago, I realised had actually not been that successful at all, but was more memorable because it was weird and interesting. And I don't know what point I was making here, but those are all things that I think.
I think it's really interesting, like, how the commentary affects your view and memory of a robot. Because I remember when I was young and watching Robot Wars, and I don't know, it's funny, like, the commentary always made the sport out to be, I think, much bigger than it ever was. Or having robots that they would come on and they'd be like, oh, this won championships elsewhere. And you think, oh man, there's this, like, you know, for me it was almost hyped up to the point of being like, oh, this is like football, in that there's all these championships everywhere and you get like world famous robots and stuff, and it's not quite that big. I don't know, it's just interesting how it affects you, or when they sort of reference past or other world championships, what you sort of realise, or what I realised later on, is like you're just referring to the last series of this TV show.
And in the really early series of Robot Wars, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, they did show some footage from sort of the original Robot Wars in the US, and I think one of the robots they showed was the Master. And again, I remember getting the idea that this thing was like the greatest machine ever made, surely invincible. I'm fairly sure it didn't even win that competition. and they showed footage of it, because it was kind of like Something, if you remember Something. You don't remember Something, do you?
Probably not.
So kind of metal ball wheels and almost kind of sort of grabby / thwack-botty, but with a saw. It's a very hard robot to describe now I think about it. And they showed footage of a fight where it was sort of launching this saw into the opponent, and there was lots of dust flying everywhere, which I now realise was actually just the saw blade wearing down. It was more like a sort of grinding disc. It was just that breaking. And that's all that was really happening. But to me, as a 8 or 9-year-old, that thing was probably the peak of human achievement, you know? And because the sport had started in America, you kind of assumed it was so far ahead, which at one point kind of became true in terms of there being sort of more powerful spinners in Battlebots. But you also just had a bunch of wedges.
Wedges are the best, man. Wedges make the sport.
Wedges have their place and we won't get into it.
Damn it. Bite, damn it, bite.
I have recently started worrying that what Hello There has is not a wedge and is more of a plough.
Why is that a problem?
Because we've referred to it as a wedge. And we might have been wrong to have done so.
I don't mind.
I mind.
It sounds like a Ryan problem.
It's also just occurred to me, I've been sat here thinking, I should really measure the angle of that wedge, but I can't. And I just realised that it's actually in a bag on the floor next to me.
Yeah, you can measure it.
I will measure the wedge. Not now, though. Now we started talking about our own robots again. I think that's a sign we need to move on to the next robot, which I've just realised I referenced earlier.
Yeah.
How fun.
How exciting. It's almost as if we planned it.
I mean, I genuinely didn't. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I've now planted the seed that it was planned, and so no one will believe you when you say that it wasn't planned.
Now, what it is the process of making the notes reminded me that this robot exists and was built in that way. And that robot is Bucktooth Burl.
Yep.
Which looks way more sensible when it hasn't got the big furry beaver head on it.
Agreed.
There are lots of touches on this robot that I really like, but there's also the fact it lost to Chromefly. And those two things do not go together.
Is Chromefly the robot with 2 spinners?
Yes, directly mounted to motors.
Directly mounted onto a motor. Are they at an angle as well, or is that something else?
Yes, they are.
They are at an angle.
And it did do, I feel the need to point this out every time we talk about it now, it did do genuine damage to Bronco before losing. And that doesn't make it a good robot, but in the past I stated it didn't, and I've always regretted that.
What happened in the fight with Bucktooth Burl?
As I recall, not a great deal. I haven't gone back and watched it, so I don't want to comment too much. But Bucktooth Burl lost.
I don't know, man. These are 3 robots that are all... I don't know. I mean, that's not fair. I don't know. The thing is, like, Overhaul has been in a lot of stuff, and so you sort of think, well, it will keep working through the entire fight, I imagine. I don't know so much about Megatento and Bucktooth Burl.
Overhaul definitely has the reliability. Megatento, it took 2 fights to the judges, and its 3rd fight, it was knocked out by Yeti, which, let's face it, was a powerful weapon, and still is. And this was in the season where Yeti went pretty far. So I don't think there's any reason to say that Megatento is going to have problems. It's not going to cause itself problems in this fight. It's a question of whether we believe that Bucktooth Burl, or I suppose Overhaul in a way, is going to knock it out actively. Or I suppose whether Bucktooth Burl is going to knock Overhaul out actively, but that seems far less likely just because the wheels are at least protected. And the only way I'm seeing Bucktooth Burl taking Megatento out is to take a wheel.
I don't know what to do with this one.
When we're having this bit of the discussion, I'm always sat here thinking about how I would respond to you saying certain things. So how would I respond if Sam right now said that he's very confident Megatento should be discounted? And how would I feel right now if Sam immediately said that Bucktooth Burl should be discounted? And if you'd said the latter, I would not have argued at all. Which tells me that my opinion is that Bucktooth Burl is the one to discount. We've only got 1 fight to judge it on, and that sucks. But it is the only robot here that hasn't won a fight. And while it is a weapon type that can have an impact in this fight, I still don't see it actively beating Overhaul, which for me is the favourite here.
Yeah, but Overhaul has lost 8 times. Maybe Bucktooth Burl will have maybe this is the fight where it begins its winning streak and we're denying it that opportunity. Maybe we should be discounting Overhaul.
That is a bold claim that I'm unsure if you're serious about.
I'm completely serious. We've got to give these robots the opportunity, you know? The robots that come on here with no wins at all, we can't just immediately assume that means they're never going to win a fight. You know, maybe we give it 7-1 somehow, 6-1 in favour of Bucktooth Burl.
What needs to happen is that we need to commit to this conversation by watching the Chromefly versus Bucktooth Burl fight before we go on.
Okay.
We need to make an informed value judgment of what Bucktooth Burl is capable of. And as I said earlier, there will be people listening with a photographic memory of that fight, and I am jealous of them. Right
then, I've got it. I've got the fight up. Are you ready? Have you started watching?
You're forgetting what computer I'm using, mate.
Oh.
I watched every letter get typed into the address bar. Because that's where I do my searches. Right, I'm there.
Are you playing now?
Yeah. But I am going to skip all of the intro.
No, the intro is gold.
The intro is there. Oh no, there's a drone. I forgot there'd be a drone.
Oh, there's a drone.
That must be Chromefly's drone, though. Right, the fight has just started for me.
Yeah, same here. I think we're miraculously in sync.
Chromefly's bars are much bigger than I remember, and one of them is gone.
Yeah, Bucktooth Burl broke it.
But Bucktooth Burl is now also spinning around madly at the side of the arena. It
broke a weapon bar.
Yeah, but Chromefly has two, and they would both break if they came in contact with particularly thick air. So immediately we're seeing big weapon unreliability here from Bucktooth Burl.
No, I'm seeing the performance of a lifetime.
I mean, technically true, given that it is its only performance. Are those random bolts sticking out of Chromefly's weapon bar as teeth?
Quite possibly.
So it looks like Bucktooth Burl is really struggling for grip here.
No, it was stuck on some debris. You're being unfair. Look, it's just got the debris out from under it.
So it's got an overly low ground clearance. Either way, it is skidding around everywhere, which is a shame because I love that wheel design, but it looks like the layers are kind of delaminating a bit and flattening out, and that's reducing the effective diameter of the wheel.
No, this is driving in like an intentionally chaotic manner to make it hard for the opponent to accurately hit it, you know? It's like that drunken boxing style of fighting here. And the weapon is spinning so fast that it looks like it's completely in sync with the refresh rate of the camera. That's what's happening here.
Flawless strategy.
This to me looks like a dominating fight for Bucktooth Burl.
I mean, the thing is, it is currently the equal second best robot in this fight. And I'm guessing it's just going to stop at some point, 'cause that's the only thing that could stop it now. I'm also desperately trying to see if the chain has broken on the weapon or if something else has gone.
If you talk about ground clearance quickly, I feel like Chromefly's ground clearance is what I would describe as excessive.
Whereas Bucktooth Burl's is probably dangerously small.
No, it's fine. It's perfect. It's got the ideal clearance. See that now the whole thing is a weapon. The whole robot is a weapon now. This is majestic. This is fantastic.
One of the things we have learned as we've built is the importance of having ground clearance in all the places that you don't have to have a low ground clearance. Because it is so easy to get stuck on scenes and debris. Oh, it's smoking. It's
deploying the smoke screen. This is a fantastic strategic weapon here. Makes it hard for the enemy to see what Bucktooth Burl is doing, and hard to predict its actions. Blimey.
That went to the judges.
That went to the judges. Well, I think that's some truly astonishing commentary that we've just delivered there.
That's highlighted a weakness of my notes because I had that down as a win by KO for Chromefly.
Ah, well.
So technically, Bucktooth Burl has demonstrated the reliability to go the distance in a fight. However, against any form of competent opposition, that would not have been useful to them.
Oh dear. Right, let's discount Bucktooth Burl then.
I'm glad we agree. Megatento versus Overhaul is still a tricky call. Because how do you control Megatento if you're Overhaul?
I mean, has Overhaul ever really controlled anyone?
It's a valid point. I can't argue with.
Megatento, I think, has done a better job of controlling robots than Overhaul ever has.
But Megatento isn't really controlling robots. It's just covering them up so that they're controlled, so their driver can't see them, and therefore creating some chaos.
No, it's control, my friend. They've got complete control over their opponent.
Someone should call a robot that.
I think it'd be a good name for a robot, yeah.
Maybe they should make it like Overhaul, but better at picking stuff up. And maybe add some kind of system that allows them to do damage while they've done that.
Yeah. That's a good idea. You should write that down.
I'll put it on my Antweight ideas list. Damn, I actually have a good name for that as well. Excuse me a second.
I think that as amusing as I would find it to try and justify a Megatento advantage in this fight, I think we both know that this is going to be an Overhaul advantage, and it's just a question of by how much.
I think there may be a genuine Megatento advantage just by virtue of having a potentially damaging weapon. Because this isn't a knockout.
Well, what do you reckon then?
I think it could be a 4-3 for Megatento.
4-3 for Megatento?
Damaging weapon.
Is it damaging though? Has it ever done any damage? And if you can't see it do the damage, does it even count?
So, oh no. I was about to quote the 2019 judging criteria.
Aha! Checkmate.
So, The 2019 judging criteria made clear that in a battle where there is no functional damage, cosmetic damage is enough to win you the damage points. I would imagine that was also true in previous seasons, just hadn't been made so clear.
It's a bold assumption.
And it's the best we've got.
Screw it, let's do it. I can't be bothered to have this conversation about these two robots anymore. I'm done.
So 1, 2, 3 for Overhaul, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Megatento.
Okay. It's a 1.
It's a win for Overhaul.
Congratulations, Team Overhaul, on your 3rd win.
Boom. Notes updated. Guess whose turn it is to intro?
Up next, we have a technical fight between Ms. Nightshade, Cranky, and Son of Waiachi.
Are we resetting the enthusiasm?
That was maximum enthusiasm, my friend.
We're resetting the enthusiasm. I'm down with this.
That was so enthusiastic that it wrapped around.
It's overflowed.
I can store enthusiasm as a 16-bit int, right? And we got to all 1s last time, so now I'm back to all 0s.
I'm completely okay with this. Miss Nightshade.
I think that I gave a level of enthusiasm that's appropriate for the robots in this round.
I mean, Son of Waiachi is in this round.
That's true. In fact, what I should have done is like Ms. Nightshade, Cranky, and Son of Waiachi.
Quick, go back and re-record.
Maybe I'll splice that in.
Do you remember how excited I was for Miss Nightshade before it actually made its one and only appearance?
Yes.
I was so happy just to be seeing something weird. I was expecting it to do lots of fun flailing and possibly win a fight just by being awkward. And then it got mishandled on the way into the arena and was therefore unable to fight. Now, you might think that I'm going to sit here and blame the people that put it in the arena. I'm going to blame entirely the team for having a robot that was fragile enough to be mishandled and broken on the way into the arena.
What happened on the way into the arena? I've forgotten.
So, their drive had some kind of worm gear-based gearbox, which cannot be back-driven, which seems like a really good idea in a combat robot. You know, a robot that cannot be pushed. A robot whose drive will disintegrate upon being pushed. Fantastic strategy. 10 out of 10.
Well, no, so right, it's like there's a distinction between cannot be back-driven and should not be back-driven. You know, cannot be back-driven, fine. Should not be back-driven, bad idea to put that in the arena.
I'd argue this both cannot and should not have been back-driven. It was such a fun idea. It was such a letdown. I'm all for letting interesting designs in. I feel that every series should have a small quota of weird robots that they let in just to maintain variety. This is as close to a wasted space as you will ever see in a series.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. I think I agree with you. This like the image of this robot like working properly when all those hammers work, I think would be staggeringly funny and absolutely worth having in any tournament. But yeah, fragile enough to be broken by the people putting it in the arena is not good, TM.
I've defended a lot of non-serious entries, a lot of uncompetitive robots. I feel like I've earned this one. And I think we all know that we're discounting that robot. It has, however, put us in the Robot Wars arena, which could still have an impact.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to...
Cranky.
Cranky.
I
don't know if you remember how excited I was about this robot.
I feel like you were probably quite excited.
I was super excited about Cranky. And I still think that had it not had the misfortune of not only facing Aftershock in the first round, but being Aftershock's first target, I think it could have done pretty well. Although that's always easy when it's not had a chance to show its flaws.
Yeah, so easy to, you know, you could look at a robot like, say, Kylo Ren and go, oh, that could do really well.
Kylo did have an opportunity to show its flaws, though. So that's maybe not the best example.
That was my point, is that, like, it doesn't matter.
It was a poorly made point, that's what it was.
It was a poorly made point. I'm sorry. I take it back.
Cranky is a robot that responded to the meta of Series 8 and then just happened to be surprised by the new meta of Series 9. Well, the almost meta, considering that Carbide still won.
I don't have a lot to say about Cranky. I'm sorry. It's not that exciting a robot.
Oh, but it is.
Is it, though?
This is an attempt at a Battlebot-style robot, where they've heavily armoured the front and are then relying on their driving to keep facing that at opponents. It's nicely optimised. As a design, we don't know about the actual execution of it. As a design, it's really nicely optimised to face horizontals.
My recollection is that the front end of this got torn off immediately.
No, so it got hit by aftershock on the front, which flipped it over, and I believe it was then the back that took the big damage.
Okay.
Although if it was torn off, that still wouldn't make me worry about its strength taking horizontal hits. It just means that it wasn't well built to take the vertical hits. I feel like the forces involved in being hit by something like Son of Waiachi's hammers would be very different to the forces involved in that hit. The weapon also, as an idea, has some promise. Again, good way to face horizontals. The horizontals. Diagonals.
What? What?
I don't know either, Sam. I don't know.
What just happened there?
I made a little mistake and I decided to draw attention to it. It's the best way to go.
Perfect.
You've then got Son of Waiachi, the actual sort of focal point of this fight, I suppose. A robot that I always forget did not take part in 2015.
They're an uncommitted team. I thought we established this last time. Son of Waiachi, it's a good robot. I like this robot. I feel like you don't like it. You always find it quite boring, don't you?
I seem to recall being quite critical of it in the past. It's a robot which is effective. It is a robot which provides a good deal of entertainment by being effective, and yet it's still a robot that I just can't make myself like. I think initially I had a bit of a thing where I didn't really like the team, and I don't know why that was. But funnily enough, the sort of slightly shifted focus of the Discovery seasons, where we've got to see a bit more of them, and the fact that they've brought some really sort of cool and interesting robots has made me like them a lot more. I think maybe I was taken in by some of the ABC editing that wanted to create some heroes and some villains, and was maybe given an opinion of them that wasn't valid. And I feel very bad that I might have let that happen.
Got sucked into the lie that is television.
And there's so much about the robot that I should like. When you see the internals of it, it's incredibly well put together. It's got a history to it, which is something that I usually appreciate. Admittedly, that history does involve some tomfoolery with the weight bonuses for walkers, but that's not their fault. Yeah, it's just a robot that I've never liked, and I'm jealous of people who are able to like it as much as they do. It was, however, still super satisfying to see it lose to Whiplash and Sawblaze in the 2019 season that we're pretending didn't happen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I think it's a really well executed, weapon optimized robot. You know, like this is probably. I know you're going to have issue with me describing it as something remotely related to a shell spinner, but like it's that kind of idea, and I think it's really well optimized for that. And I don't know. I just like it. It's just a nice robot. Very compact body. Ridiculous weapon.
For what it's worth, I don't have a problem with you calling it that, or sort of thinking of it that way, because if you were going to fight it, you would prepare it exactly the same way you would to fight a full-body spinner.
Yeah. I
resent you calling it a shell spinner, but, you know.
Oh, so close.
I also find it quite funny, by the way, that in the 2020 BattleBots rule, where they've put weight limits on weapons, they have basically put a specific clause in just for Son of Waiachi with sort of overhead cage spinners as a whole class of thing.
Whole category just for them. Well, I feel like if you're dealing with a team that's got a history with operating within the letter of the rules rather than the spirit, then you're gonna make sure the letter of the rules is correct.
Very true. But there's no doubting the effectiveness of Son of Waiachi. And even though I feel that Cranky is a robot that is fairly well optimised, especially by the standards of Series 9, for facing horizontals, I don't think that anyone is really prepared for facing Son of Waiachi. You could be more suited to it than others, but you are never going to have the ideal setup, because energy is energy and a lot of it is still going to go into you.
Yeah.
Do I have to do an Incredibles meme for that now?
You absolutely do. I don't know, like, of course you do.
I have regrets.
Regrets are regrets.
Regrets is regrets.
Go do that one now as well.
Let's stop before we just manufacture work for me.
Manufactured work is manufactured work.
The end of Spinnerproof is the end of Spinnerproof.
Oh.
So I'm guessing
Spinnerproof will be ended by the recursive meme. Ryan will be so busy trying to keep up with all these ridiculous meme sequences that he makes that we won't have time to record any more Spinnerproof.
Incredibles meme is Incredibles meme. There we go. I think we're probably in some agreement of where we're going here. Miss Nightshade is being discounted. Son of Waiachi has the advantage. It's just a question of how big that advantage is.
6-1.
I do want to remind you that we're in the Robot Wars arena, and I wonder if that affects your thinking at all.
I mean, it affects my thinking insofar as they're going to put Kill a Lot and Shunt in the arena, but beyond that, 6-1. Son of Waiachi is going to win. No questions.
I mean, I was hoping for an in-depth discussion, but I'm completely with you. Yeah, 1 and 6.
Oh, 1 and 6. You and your ordering, man.
So, 1 for Cranky, everything else for Son of Waiachi.
Yes. Drum roll, please.
I thought you were waiting for me to roll it there.
Yeah. Can you roll this? Can you roll this one, man? Thank you. It's a 3.
Son of Waiachi goes through. Sorry, I completely forgot to clarify that for you.
I mean, I knew it's the audience that, can't keep. It's got the short-term memory issues. It's not like I get confused about what that number means after every roll that we do.
What
That'd
you
be
need
ridiculous.
is live show notes.
Yeah.
Which I've essentially just created for you, to be fair.
Yeah. Beat Cranky and Ms. Nightshade thanks to odds of 6-1.
That's what I just rated.
I know. Have you not been recording the actual number that was rolled?
No, and now I regret that. We need to check the die,
Yeah, check it is.
Check it
it
runs
is in
true.
fact even. Yeah,
Well, it's odd, but actually it is also even. It's both.
everything and nothing. Does it even exist? That is the question. Maybe I'm just playing to you the sound of a die roll, and then picking whatever number I want.
I would genuinely never know.
Yeah, maybe I'm just rolling it and ignoring the number.
And what's just occurred to me now is that the audience have no way of trusting that we've ever actually been saying the number that's come up.
No, this whole thing is a sham.
It would explain a lot as well.
I think it's your turn to intro, and you've got to top my ridiculous intro from the last one.
Hey, cool cats. Little fight coming up for you. Got some Tauron. We've got Tomahawk. We've got the old boy Dan Tom Kia. Let's go on this ride together.
That's dangerously close to ASMR.
I will never, ever be involved in ASMR. This voice is not an ASMR voice.
It's well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on ASMR, but I feel like that's gonna tick those boxes for some people. You might have just given someone shivers.
They are welcome to have their boxes ticked however they like. So, Tauron, for some reason I have combined this into one robot as though the Series 9 and 10 versions were at all the same.
They are not at all the same.
I feel like we should be immediately taking the Series 10 version. The version that lasted more than 8 seconds, and which is, more monsoon than the original.
Sold.
It technically has a worse record. It managed to lose 2 fights instead of just 1, but that was purely because of the way the series worked. As an idea, it was really sound. We all know what it's gone on to become. Unfortunately, we do have to judge it as what it was at this point. But we can do that. We can do that knowing that Monsoon is also in the tournament for us to kind of make up. Although I've just realised that Monsoon must have already been, so let's quickly check how it did.
I'm looking forward to Monsoon versus Tauron.
Monsoon beat Ultimo Destructo, so we're all good here.
Thank God for that.
Imagine the pain otherwise.
Oh, dearie me.
I'm still surprised, and frankly happy, that Androme 4000 was given the decision against Tauron. It absolutely deserved it, but I've just become used to judges' decisions not going the way I think they should. So when they do go what I feel is the correct way, I'm always quite glad.
Imagine a judging decision being correct. It's unheard of.
As we know, everything that any judge has ever done has been completely wrong.
Absolutely. Unquestionably wrong. Well, because it wasn't said by you, so how could it possibly be right?
Just like I've never seen a football team I support commit a single foul. It just doesn't happen.
No, I've never seen it either. I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I've never seen a football team that I support commit a foul.
Have you ever watched a full game of football?
No.
Have you ever watched a partial game of football?
I've seen bits of football games on TV.
Have you found yourself,
Am I multiple people now?
all versions of you, have you found yourself instinctively backing one team over the other?
I think the closest I'd ever come to that would be to back the losing team just to be difficult.
That is a fairly strong instinct in a lot of football fans as well when they're a neutral in a game.
Yeah, the other one, maybe not the losing team, but to back the team that no one else is backing.
Yeah, back the underdog.
Yeah, well, not even the underdog, but like, so if you're in a room, you could be in a room full of, I don't know, West Ham fans or something, and they could all be, West Ham could be the underdog, and it's just amusing to back the other team. I've backed myself to a corner of trying to name another football team.
I was going to say, in this example, who are the other team?
I don't know. I'm going to stop right there. But what I'm saying is you could be in a room full of people that are all backing the underdog and then back the team that's going to win just to piss off the people that you're in the room with.
You have no idea how much it bothers me that West Ham was the one team you could think of.
I can think of other ones.
I'm sure you could. But
Manchester United.
We're going to get bogged down in this if we let us.
As Manchester City.
All correct so far?
Yeah.
With hindsight, I'm pleased that you went with West Ham, frankly.
England.
Yep, you could just name countries now and you'd be pretty much in the clear.
I mean, to what extent could I just name cities in England? Is there like a London City football team?
I was going to say, if you named London, you'd immediately be wrong.
Yeah, but that's why I specified London City.
There's a City of London, but that's not a football team. That's a weird place where the rules don't apply.
I know, but I wasn't sure if there was a football team that came from that weird place where the rules don't apply.
You think there'd be a football ground there, like next to Canary Wharf?
They might have a football ground elsewhere. They might transport their team there for practice. I don't know.
Just to airdrop
I don't know how football works. They've got enough money, I would have thought.
As much as I'm loving this conversation, I really want to get back to the robots.
Oh.
I was hoping that I could divert you to naming countries, then we could say the Netherlands, and then go, talking of the Netherlands, Tomahawk.
You brute force your own silly segue in, just for the sake of it. Fine.
Not a silly
Tomahawk.
segue, it's just a good segue.
It's a ridiculous segue.
It's a segue we deserve.
I'm glad that I derailed it.
Tomahawk, now we've got a tricky situation here.
Is that so?
Because I have Tomahawk's competitive record as 0-1. However, they did take part in the International Special. But we're not counting the International Special. Because if we did, we'd have robots like The Bash in here, and that just felt wrong.
Yeah.
So for our purposes, it has had one fight, it was a melee, and it lost. It got kind of chewed to pieces by Sabretooth, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Okay. I have nothing to add to this.
And then we have Danton Kia. Of course, this is just taking Danton Kia's Series 8 into account, where it actually won some fights.
Dun, dun, dun.
That, for the record, is in contrast to the other robots in this fight, not Danton Kia in general.
Imagine winning fights.
I don't have to.
Stab me every time.
Actually, neither do you, to be fair. Imagine winning fights in a way that you're actually proud of would be more accurate.
Oh dear. Every time we talk about this, another stab in the back from my so-called teammate.
No, I'm happy to keep dragging you along with me.
Yes, we all know that you're more successful than me.
I'll pull you up by your bootstraps, don't you worry.
Oh, dearie me.
Oh, it's so the opposite of how this actually works. Anyway, this is great because this is a fully Robot Wars fight.
Yeah.
3 different weapon
rare.
types as well.
This is the diverse field of your dreams. This should be your favourite fight of the entire competition.
I would be very happy if this came up as a 3-way in a Robot Wars episode.
What if it came up as a 3-way in a Battlebots episode?
That would traditionally mean, well, certainly currently mean, that they thought all 3 of them were weak competitors, and I'd be upset by that.
What about if they all came up in a three-way in a Rotunti series. How excited are you about that prospect?
I mean, not very, because this is really hard to judge. First of all, I've got no idea who's to discount here. Well, I've got an idea, Tomahawk, but I don't feel good about being that confident.
Well, we all know that axes are not damaging. So I don't know.
I'm not sure that Tauron is that damaging either.
Ooh. You say that now, but when Tauron comes knocking at your door, he'll be singing a different tune.
Well, I just wouldn't open the door, and then I'd go up a few steps, and then I'd get a pair of sturdy work boots.
I don't know. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't really remember much of Tauron's performance. And I've got to be very careful not to conflate it with Monsoon. So I feel like I'm not a reliable person to judge that performance.
So for Tauron, imagine Monsoon, but less manoeuvrable and not as much power in the weapon. Or certainly it didn't show as much power in the weapon. It did some damage to Androne in the fight they had, but that was superficial damage to plastic bits of armour. But I fully believe that if it got time to spin up and got a good hit on, say, the rear of Danton Kia, it could do some serious damage. I'm okay with Tomahawk being discounted. So, Tauron is at least invertible over Tomahawk's need to self-right.
Yeah.
So that gives it a sort of edge there in terms of fighting a flipper. Tomahawk's big sides are a very nice target for something like Tauron, which is also true for Danton Kia, but we know that Danton Kia is quick. Whereas Tomahawk, it's mobile, but not particularly nippy, as I recall. So yeah, I'm happy discounting Tomahawk. I feel like I'm fighting to justify it more than I need to. Which then leaves us the dilemma of what happens next.
I'm inclined, and I'm not sure I can articulate why this is, but I'm inclined to give the advantage to Danton Kia.
I'm leaning in a similar direction. The Androne fight in particular showed that Tauron wasn't able to turn all that quickly. And while I think Danton Kia would struggle to get control of Tauron in a head-to-head collision, if they can get around the sides, they can manoeuvre them around quite a lot into the house robots and potentially towards the wall to flip them out. And because of the way Danton Kia is designed, even if they took some hits to the front early on, it's not going to mess up their wedge in a way that would harm their chances significantly of getting under Tauron.
It's a bold claim. I'm going to use one of my 3 challenges on that.
Okay.
Why do you think it wouldn't get messed up?
Because it's got that bi-wedge design. It's very unlikely that it would take a hit directly to the front of one of them that would bend it up. And even if it took a hit to, say, the front face of the flipper, that still doesn't damage its ability to get under them in the first place going forwards.
I think I can see where you're coming from here. Not sure I entirely agree with you.
So it's not like, for example, if you had a flipper like TR2, where it's a really wide one-piece flipper, and a good hit from a vertical could peel a section of it up that would massively hinder the ability of the rest of that flipper to get under the opponent. I think what I'm saying is true, it's just whether it's as impactful as I think it is. I think that's more the issue here.
I think the thing is, if you hit one of the sides of this wedge, this bi-wedge, I feel like you're still making it much harder to get the other side under anything in a meaningful way.
I mean, if you manage to hit it hard enough to sort of bend it or whatever, yeah, sure, but that's going to take a lot of doing.
I suppose that's has got the advantage of being triangles, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a whole structure rather than a single piece.
Okay.
Again, maybe I'm massively overestimating the importance of this, but I feel like I need something to make a decision based on.
I mean, for me, I think it's enough that it's quicker and going to be able to get around the side of Tauron, really.
And it's a flipper in Robot Wars. It's got all these things going for it. It's just a question of the numbers.
The numbers. This is a bit closer, I think. This isn't a 6 and 1 or a 1 and 6.
I also don't think it's a 3 and 4. I think it's a 2 and 5.
2 and 5. I can go with that.
Even though Danton Kia is a Series 8 machine and Tauron is a Series 10.
That's a whole 2 better.
Maybe I do think it should be a 3 and 4. I don't know. Your call.
How well driven is Danton Kia?
Fairly, as I recall. It's got multiple wins over invertible robots. Just hasn't done so well against flippers, or the same flippers, should I say, because it managed to lose to TR2 twice. But it beat King Bee Remix, which is invertible. It beat Big Nipper, which is invertible. It beat Overdozer, which is one of the greatest robots in Robot Wars history.
I think we can't ignore the fact as well that Tomahawk is going to be here and interfering with things. I've just sort of got like images of Tauron being busy trying to do damage to Tomahawk, and then Dan Tom Kier coming in and ruining both of their days.
Although I do wonder who would gang up on who here. Normally I'd say everyone gangs up on the big scary spinner.
Yeah.
But in this case, I do wonder if there'd be more of an inclination for them to gang up on the big scary flipper.
I don't know.
But I can't push the fact that Dan Tom Kier is quite an old machine out of my head now. So I feel like it is more gang up on the new scary spinner than the old, historically scary flipper. I'm still happy giving Dan Tom Kier the advantage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll let you decide by how much.
2 and 5.
And you know what? I'm hoping for the upset as we do this.
Yeah, so am I.
It's been a while, it's due. That's how probability works.
Yeah, the dice remembers. It has a memory for the previous results. Yeah, I'm gonna go. What did I say? 2 and 5.
Yep. So 1 and 2 for Tauron, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Dan Tom Kier.
We're both hoping for the upset. Sorry, Dan Tom Kier. Oh my goodness me! It's a 1.
I want you to check slide 57. Wrote it before it even happened.
See, you shouldn't have said that because now people are going to believe that we're making it up. It's genuinely a 1.
I completely... Actually, it's not about me completely believing, is it? I just had a good feeling.
Does the audience believe me? They'd better believe me, or else.
That was my Darren Brown moment. You don't get to take it away from me.
Well done, Mr. Brown.
So, because it's an upset, I think we technically have to justify how it happened, don't we? Them's the rules.
Oh, God.
Maybe it's that one critical hit from the weapon. Yeah, any chance to get around the rear, which is obviously more likely in a three-way situation. Maybe the expected ganging up on Tauron doesn't happen and it's actually gang up on Dan Tom Kier.
Yeah, maybe Tomahawk goes to Dan Tom Kier. I'm not even going to redo it. That's it. That's staying in. And then Tauron comes from the rear. Yeah, that's right. You heard me.
Yeah, that's now my headcanon too. And it's your turn to intro. What's the theme of this intro? Do it entirely in Spanish.
If I knew Spanish, that'd be funny. I mean, I could.
Google Translate, do it.
I regret my decisions to do this. Oh dear. 01010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010 bother to do. We have the 4 or so horsemen versus Thor versus Rusty.
Your Sam ran into a problem and needs to restart.
I'm tempted I'm just going to convert that back just to see how much of that I got through before getting fed up.
I'm guessing the 4 you got through.
No, not even that. I got the 4.
So, the X number of horsemen.
Yes.
They are, spoiler alert, technically our most successful robot in this 3-way melee, in terms of win to loss ratio.
What are the names that are used for these things?
Problem.
Problem.
I've still got the 2019 information in this one.
Oh, you've had days to fix this, Ryan. Days.
I fixed it last time and therefore didn't look again.
You clearly didn't fix it last time.
Also, the numbers that I had associated, it was just a mistake generally. So the 4 Horsemen is not technically our most successful entry in this fight.
I just want to get this out there, right? I take issue with naming your robot the 4 Horsemen, and then 1, only ever entering 3 of them, and 2, not naming them after the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
I mean, a couple of them were. It doesn't help as well that I've got a picture of the 2019 version here. They had, I think, War and Pestilence were 2 of the robot names.
Yeah, but like you got to commit to it, right? You've got to have all of them.
But then we wouldn't have had Buttercup.
But you can't have Buttercup as one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
But that's like the joke. Do you want to miss out on the joke?
All I'm going to say is I'm not a fan, but that's just the way it is.
Names aside, I'm a fan of the concept.
Oh yeah, I like the robot. I just struggle with the naming of it.
I'm so glad that they have a win on their record as well. Even though it was one of the softer fights they could have been given, Gamma 9 and Double Jeopardy being a robot with one use of its weapon to knock out 4 opponents. Still not sure how that was meant to work.
Very carefully calculated maneuver.
I think they were supposed to play a game of pool with them. Hit the first one into the second one, into the third one, into the fourth one.
Yeah, perfect.
I was about to make a joke that literally no one would have got.
Do it.
Need John Virgo as one of the drivers.
I have no idea what you're getting at there. I'm not convinced I can even guess. I'm assuming it's a sport thing, but I'm not even sure of that.
It's a sport /TV. Basically, on British TV, there used to be a game show that was snooker-based. And one of the hosts was a snooker player, John Virgo, who would do trick shots as part of the show.
Ah.
It's a fantastic joke.
I believe you.
Next week, we'll be talking Bullseye.
Oh, no.
Thor, then.
Thor. Let's just leave that awkward silence there and move on to Thor.
What are your thoughts on Thor? Your thoughts?
Oh, God. That makes my head Thor hearing that.
So one of the things that we did say when we first set up Retunti, that we haven't really followed through on because it's hard, is that we would also try to take live event performance into account. And Thor is one of the robots that would do very well out of that.
Are you only going to apply this rule to robots who you think it favours? Is that what's going on?
I'm not going to apply it at all. I just want to point out that this is one of the robots that would have done very well out of that if we were still doing it.
Okay. I'll allow it.
It's also a robot that I think has a poorer record than it maybe should. Largely because of Series 8, when it got badly hurt by Carbide and therefore zombied its way through the rest of the grand final without really a hope of doing anything. So we've got it down as with 10 wins and 8 defeats, but that could very easily have been higher. That could have been 11-7, 12-6, probably a little too generous, but...
Alas, that's not what happened. We're not judging what could have been, but what is and what was.
We do also really need to pick a version here, because as a result of that undignified death it suffered in Series 8, the Series 9 and 10 versions were, I would say, substantially different. The drive layout was changed a lot. There are a lot more front-end options. I think it's visually different.
Yeah, it's a completely different robot in so many ways.
And I still think the original was definitely the most effective.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn here because I like the way the more modern one looks. It's a much sleeker looking robot, much less boxy. But I don't know. It felt like it drove in a weird way. It didn't drive quite as well. And yeah, maybe not quite as successful. I don't know. It's tricky. Not sure.
I think part of that with the driving was that in Series 8, Thor had the advantage of being a robot that its driver knew very well. It had been competing in that form for a little while. It was dialed in and he knew how to get the best out of it. Whereas with the later versions, because they were newer builds, they still had the kinks that needed working out. And there wasn't quite that sort of telepathic connection between driver and robot. Although I also think that the Series 8 version just looks like it's a lot nicer to drive, just with the wheel placement.
Yeah, that seems like a better place for the wheels for this kind of robot than right at the back, to me.
But then maybe the configurability of the later versions is something that we should value going forwards.
I don't know, man. I always struggle with these distinctions, right? The other thing to consider here is that while older Thor did better, it's also older Thor, It's Thor wearing a fat suit. And do you want to have that for your grand finale of the greatest film crossover in history? I don't know.
Should we go modern Thor?
I think so.
The records are similar all through. I think we can justify saying that on that basis, we just go most modern as a default.
Yeah. I think, like, the weird driving aside, it still did, reasonably well, and the robots that it lost to were good robots, so...
And one of the losses was the 10-way as well, where you have a much greater chance of losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to go Series 10.
Modern Thor, let's do it.
Modern Thor it is. One where we won't have to have any kind of debate is Rusty. The robot that fell apart when flipped.
May it rust in peace. So let's discount Rusty.
Yep. And we then have the Four Horsemen versus Thor. Now, technically speaking, we should be deciding which of the Four Horsemen go in.
Oh, God. What are the options?
That's what I'm just trying to find out. I should have done it on my phone. It would have been much quicker.
Four Horsemen is a multi-bot from the United Kingdom, which competed in both seasons of the Battlebots reboot.
I've just got Metallica songs. So, it would appear that, in its 2018 version, all they had was the 3 spinners plus the wedge.
Which is 3 horsemen plus Buttercup.
Except it ends up being 2 horsemen plus Buttercup.
Because they can't even use them all. Oh.
Yeah, it was War, Famine, Pestilence and Buttercup. I think that's good comedy, personally. So you got 3 there and 1 that isn't. You build up the expectation that they're all going to be there, and then boom, Buttercup. Who saw that coming?
But it would be. I would agree that would be funny if they could enter. If they built them such that all 4 of them went into the fight. Like, it's lost on 2 fronts. I think it's a. I don't think that's the world's greatest joke. Personally, that's just my sense of humour. But like, it's also diminished by the fact that you only ever have 3 of the robots in the arena.
So what is the world's greatest joke?
Oh, this podcast.
I honestly thought you were going to go with the jellyfish or foxic.
Oh, blimey.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't.
I've upset enough
It would have
people.
been a cheap laugh. We don't specialise in those at all.
No. I mean, the biggest joke really is Predator.
As in the film.
Sure.
Knowing what setup the Four Horsemen have to take in, I do think they have a chance here. Especially because we've gone Series 10 Thor, where the wheels are so far near the back.
Sorry, so we've got 2 spinners and a wedge, haven't we?
Yeah. And I just described the wheels as being far near the back.
Far near the back. Yes. Common way of describing the location of things. It is far near the thing. Makes perfect sense.
It's also worth noting that because of the Four Horsemen, we're in the Battlebots arena. Although I feel that may help Thor, because it means it's not going to accidentally get Matilda to death again.
Oh yeah, that was brutal, wasn't it?
It's that big cloud of CO2 that spelt disappointment.
Yeah.
Rusty is also there. We should not forget their impact. Their impact is that someone will have to attack them once in order for them to be knocked out. I'm including Buttercup in the someones.
Yeah. Just give them a quick nudge. Tap them out. And then continue on with the real fight. I don't know.
It's still in Thor's favour, I feel. Drive alone will get them a long way in this fight.
The thing is, I like you, I like the idea of the Four Horsemen. I like the idea. And as far as small, fairly lightweight spinners go, I think they're pretty good. But I don't think they're going to deliver the kind of damage that's necessary to knock out Thor.
I also don't think that Thor is going to be able to knock them out. So this becomes a who's going to do enough for the judges situation, which might end up being the Four Horsemen. This is Battlebots.
Well, no, it's in the Battlebots arena. It doesn't mean it's the Battlebots judges. Surely we're the judges. We're the people judging this.
I mean, we can check with the rules as written, but I'm fairly sure it was home arena and home rule set. Fortunately, the SEO on Ratunkti is such that I could just search it and immediately get our page.
Do you actually?
Go through the eligibility rules, which are long. So, discussions will be predicated upon a battle taking place in the first named robot's home arena under their home battle rules. Now, you could argue that battle rules and judging rules are different. I think they're inexorably intertwined.
Okay. Fine. So be it.
And Thor, of course, is going to struggle to hit the small targets, so it might struggle for aggression points.
Yeah.
And control points, for that matter.
I feel like Thor would just start shoving them around, you know?
But that doesn't score points, necessarily.
The big spade. Oh, it doesn't, does it? Because they've got silly judging rules. I want Thor to win this fight.
I absolutely believe that Thor should, but I don't trust that they would under those broken rules.
Right. The Four Horsemen lost to Blacksmith, which is a worse hammer than Thor.
True, but it's a more controlled hammer that's easier to score some aggression-scoring hits with.
But it wasn't the judge's decision,
Oh.
according to your notes.
Oh, well then, it's Thor's fight, isn't it?
I have to imagine it is.
Is it 6 and 1 level, or 1 and 6 level, or is it 2 and 5 level?
I don't feel like I can quite go there because there is the judges looming over us. So I don't think it could be quite that kind of a landslide role here. So I feel like it's got to be 2 and 5.
I'm happy with that. So 1, 2 for the Four Horsemen, everything else for Thor, including 4.
Oh, for God's sake, it's a 2.
Damn it!
Oh, man.
Why do all the upsets come at once?
Thor failed to do enough damage to win a knockout and then lost on stupid broken judging criteria around aggression, I assume.
Or maybe they got to a wheel. That was also a possibility.
Maybe the Four Horsemen got to a wheel.
And we've got to the end of an episode.
Deary me. And it only took some time. I feel like every time I mention how long we've been recording, I then look at the timestamp when I'm editing and realise I've cut nearly 20 minutes out.
I mean, for reference, we've been recording for 2.25 hours. We were talking for like 45 minutes before that as well.
Yeah.
We did.
Should we have a guess at what the timestamp will be in the edit?
I'm going to say that we're currently at 1:46. Oh, no. Be earlier than that. 1:36.
1:36. I think that we are at 1:52.
You did go to the toilet for a suspiciously long time.
That'll be a fun game that I can that I can stack in my favour.
Oh, of course, yeah, we won't be cutting a lot at the beginning, will we? Maybe I've gone early. I've gone too early. But
I definitely think you're too short. I think we're definitely past that. I think that this whole episode will be closer to 2 hours than an hour and a half.
I was thinking that some of the stuff we were talking about that we would not include had happened after we pressed record, but it didn't. We started with me asking you about YouTube 100 subscribers.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wrong, but I'm going to embrace it.
Okay.
Do an outro.
You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episode/73. And there you can find links to all the stuff we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us what you should tweet to us. Oh, God damn it.